So, who has the best cardio in the UFC? Well, in this video, guys, we'll be working it out. I've got fighters all around the screen who I'm going to drag and drop into this tier list. And S tier is the best cardio you can possibly have in the UFC. 5 rounds, mental pace, all the way back down to F tier, which is some of the people who have the worst cardio in the UFC. Absolute 1 round gas tanks. Terrible, terrible cardio. So I'm MMA Tizzer, and without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with someone with pretty good cardio indeed. He's an S tier fighter. It is Colby Chaos Covington. We're putting him in S tier, and this shouldn't surprise anyone. Colby has some of the best cardio we've ever seen in the UFC. He can push an insane pace. I'm pretty sure it's mainly due to the fact that he hardly cuts any weight. I'm pretty sure he cuts like 4 pounds to make welterweight, to make 170 pounds, and it really shows in the octagon. Insane pace. 5 rounds is no problem for this guy. He doesn't even slow down whatsoever. Insane wrestling pressure. We've seen it against Masvidal. We've seen it against Tyrone Woodley. He pushed a good pace against him. Absolutely drowned him on the ground. We saw it against Usman. They went toe to toe for 5 rounds twice. Even though he got finished, he still did a great job, and he was still throwing volume, insane volume, always trying to get takedowns when he can do, and that is why he's on S tier. We move on. Someone who hasn't got as good cardio, but still good cardio, is Israel Adesanya, the last outbender. So I think Israel's cardio is pretty good, but it's not amazing. And the reason being is he's not actually that much of a high volume striker. If you compare him to his opponent, he does usually throw less strikes. And when he is throwing strikes, he ain't swinging for the fences. So he isn't really exerting a lot of energy in comparison to some other guys on this list that we're going to see later on in the video. But yeah, not huge volume, leg kicks, jabs at range. So considering that, he can go 5 rounds easily, good cardio, he can get up when he's on the ground, and he doesn't seem too gassed. But in the first Alex Pereira fight in the UFC, he was getting pretty tired in that 5th round. You could tell he was getting pretty tired. So his cardio is good, but he doesn't throw a lot of volume, so it's never really tested too much. And when it was in the Pereira fight, he seemed pretty tired in those final 2 rounds. We move on. Someone else with insanely good cardio. Aljamain Sterling. Well, I mean, this guy is on EPO. What more do I have to say? He can push a pace really, really well. This guy doesn't even sit on stools in the rest breaks in between rounds. He literally just puts his arms up against the side, because this guy is an EPO monster. And it's so obvious, you can tell. And he just spams takedowns all fight. Any normal person that isn't on a EPO, that would immediately gas them out. He literally shot for like 30 takedowns in this fight against Peter Yan in the rematch. And yeah, this guy just doesn't really seem to gas whatsoever. Can push a good pace. Does he tire a tiny bit? You can kind of see it in the last few rounds, but he's always usually less tired than his opponent, so it's definitely less noticeable. But I reckon if this guy went up against someone with really good cardio, you could kind of tell. But EPO machine, and that is why Aljamain Sterling is in A tier. We move on. The person who I think has the best cardio in the entire UFC, none other than Alexander Volkanovski. This guy's cardio is actually insane. It is on another level. He literally never tires. So, so crazy. He can push the most mental pace. His striking doesn't even deteriorate in quality. With the other guys on this list, you see them get sloppier as the fight goes on. Aljamain Sterling, less conviction in his punches. Israel Adesanya, just less conviction, kind of worse striking as the rounds go on. But Volk never lets up. His striking remains crisp the entire fight through, just as fast, just as sleek, just as much power. And yeah, crazy, crazy cardio. He can wrestle, he can defend takedowns, he can get up in the 5th round. Not a lot of people can do that. And he can push a pace. We saw in the Islam fight when he knocked down Islam at the end, and he was raining down shots with 1 minute to go. Not a lot of people would be able to do that, and Islam was way more gassed than him. So yeah, S tier fighter. Insane pace, insane striking, and the reason why he's above Kobe is because personally I think his quality doesn't drop off whatsoever, and in comparison maybe Kobe's gets a bit more sloppy as the fight goes on. Still both got god cardio though. We move on. Someone who I think has underrated cardio, Alex Pereira. We're putting him in C tier. We're putting him at the top of C. Honestly, I'd never really watched this guy's full fight before he joined the UFC, but I was pretty impressed. In the Adesanya fight, I thought he might get tired, and although he did look pretty gassed in round 3 after the wrestling, in round 4 he had a bit of a second wind, and he came back and showed resilience and toughness that a lot of people can't do in those big fights, those big title fights, and then ended up getting the finish. So yeah, in that final round, he really went for it and exerted a lot of energy. A lot of energy that a lot of other fighters wouldn't be able to muster in the fifth and final round of the title fight. So yeah, the second win definitely helped, and it showed to me that he's actually got a gas tank. You know, this guy isn't a 3 round fighter. He can go all 5 rounds pretty comfortably, and obviously he's very dangerous in that final round, which a lot of fighters seem not to be able to get finishes in the last few rounds of their fights nowadays. But Alex Pereira, underrated cardio in my opinion. We move on. Another A tier fighter. I'm going for Kamaru Usman, and I'm putting him at the top of A. And the reason being is, if this was old Usman, you know, from like 2 years ago, I'd put him in S tier, up with Kobe and Volk. But in the trilogy fight against Leon Edwards, he looked pretty tired. In fact, I think he looked more tired than Leon Edwards. Obviously, he's aging now. He's got a bit older. He's a bit slower, and when he's not, you know, demolishing someone who doesn't train at altitude, you can really tell that he's kind of past his prime a little bit now. He just looked tired. He was taking really heavy breaths, and he was a bit slower in the final 2 rounds. So Usman's there, but if this tier list was 2 years ago, he would definitely be an S tier because he used to have the most goated cardio. I'm pretty sure he was on EPO as well, but in the Salt Lake City fight, he showed good cardio, but that was pre-knockout, and you never know how these knockouts change people, and he's old as well. So that's why he's there and not an S tier. We move on. Another S tier cardio fighter, Max Holloway. He's going up here. He might even have to go here, guys, because this guy just doesn't tire either. He's just like Volk. Two of the same kind of fighters there. They just push a relentless pace, primarily striking for Holloway, obviously. Doesn't really take things to the ground too often. And he retains just as much quality in the fifth as he does in the first. And, you know, there's not really much else to say about Holloway. Insane striking, always putting out output, mental volume, probably more volume than Volk, to be honest. Very boxing orientated, throws a lot of hands in fights, and always keeps his head movement up, keeps his footwork clean, and a lot of fighters can't do that in the final 2 rounds of fights, in title fights and stuff, but he can. So huge respect to Max Holloway. He's got amazing cardio, and he always has, and I can't see him slowing down anytime soon because he's still only 31, I think. We move on. Someone who recently caught my attention actually at the weekend after his fight, Jared Cannonier. He's going in B tier because this guy suddenly, even though he's like 40 years old now, decided to push the most relentless pace against Marvin Vettori after gassing out in fights previously. He just went 5 rounds, throwing absolute haymakers the entire time. I don't know how he does it. I think he's maybe introduced a few new things to his training, if you get what I mean. But geez, relentless pace from Cannonier there. I don't know how he did that, because, you know, he has actually had some gas problems in the past, but that recent fight completely changed that. So I think he's definitely warranted on this tier list. If you go back and look at that fight with Marvin Vettori that just happened, crazy volume, crazy pace, didn't really slow down at all, was still lethal in the fifth, nearly finished him in the fifth. So yeah, mad improvements from Cannonier there, and that is why he's in B tier. We move on. Our first F tier fighter, Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, I know he's dangerous in basically every round, but his cardio is so laughably bad. He has no cardio whatsoever. This guy gasses after the first round. He literally can't do anything. He just stands still, immobile, and fights after the first round. No footwork, no nothing, no offensive wrestling. Really low volume, which makes it even more embarrassing that he gasses, because, you know, some of the fighters who gas, they're high volume, you know what I mean? They proper go for it. Derek Lewis literally throws like 2 strikes every minute. He's got terrible striking output, and he still gasses. So you know, obviously I know he's near the end of his career now, but earlier in his career I would have definitely recommended he does a bit more cardio and endurance. Obvious F tier. We move on. Cyril Gane. He's going in B tier because, considering he's a heavyweight, he can push a good pace. This guy can go 5 rounds pretty comfortably. Done it against Volkov, done it against Rosenstrike, and he did it against Ngannou. I know he lost that fight, but he still, you know, I mean, he made some stupid decisions. We're not even going to talk about them. But in the Rosenstrike fight, went 5 rounds comfortably, pieced him up in every single round almost. And in the Volkov fight, he won the majority of the rounds, got that decision win, and he looked good in the fifth. So yeah, for a heavyweight, very good cardio. Looks like he could go even more rounds, to be honest, and good gas tank, because especially when you're comparing him to a lot of these other heavyweights, because they just gas out within the first round like Derek Lewis. So yeah, huge difference to the old generation of heavyweights. This new generation is looking a lot more promising, better gas tanks, and I'd say he probably is the best gas tank in the heavyweight division for now. Obviously, we haven't seen John Jones's gas tank in the heavyweight division yet because he finished Cyril Gane in the first round. But yeah, Cyril Gane, B tier, best cardio in a heavyweight in my opinion. We move on. I'm putting Khabib in the bottom of A tier. Okay, we're going for Khabib in the bottom of A tier. He's been in a lot of big fights that had a lot of high output, and he looked fine. He looks really, really in shape in his core, and I've noticed he never really looks tired. He has really good breathing. He keeps it under control, keeps calm, and I know he looked tired in the McGregor fight, but he still got the win. Still put on the offensive wrestling, and ever since then he's just looked good. Never really gassed in a fight. Always been sharp. And I know he doesn't have huge output on the feet, but in his wrestling, he proper goes for it and he really exerts a lot of energy. So he's gone in the bottom of A because I think he definitely has more output than Adesanya. I know Adesanya looks less tired in some fights, but you got to consider Khabib obviously offensively wrestles, which is much more demanding than leg kicking at range. And yeah, we move on. Conor McGregor, he's going in D tier. People say his cardio is terrible. I wouldn't call his cardio terrible. I think it's pretty bang average, reasonable. But when he's competing against the high level guys, a lot of them do have good cardio. And yeah, he does also. He kind of really goes to the finish in the first round. So he does a lot of output in the first round. So because of that, he does tend to gas out after that if he can't get the finish, which obviously makes sense because he just throws massive punches. Should probably look to limit them in the future. And basically, the higher the weight class he went, the worse it got. When he fought at welterweight, he looked really tired after the first rounds. And then you kind of see that when he lost to Nate Diaz because he gassed completely after one round of fighting, which is crazy. So he's going in D tier for stuff like that. At featherweight, it wasn't so bad. Went 3 rounds with Max Holloway and won. I know that was a long time ago, but it still counts. But yeah, when he moves up the weight classes, when he's got more muscle mass and he can't find the finish in the first round, starts to get sloppy, starts to get poor, starts to get a bit desperate, and just not as good. We saw it in the Khabib fight. I know he had a second wind in the third round, but the fourth round he looked quite tired as well. So that's why McGregor's in D tier. We move on. Another S tier pick, Nate Diaz. No questions need to be told about this one. This guy literally has never gassed in a UFC fight ever, and he's had tons of them. If a fight was literally 100 rounds, he'd win every single UFC fight, I think. Is he high volume? No, not really, but is his cardio really good? Yeah. Against Leon Edwards, he basically looked fresh, like he just started the fight in the fifth round, and Leon looked very tired. Same in all his fights, to be honest. In the McGregor fight, he took advantage of a gassed McGregor and subbed him. So yeah, just insane cardio. I don't really know why he's got such good cardio, but he must do a lot of running and stuff like that, or it might just be natural. But yeah, Nate Diaz, GOAT cardio, some of the greatest in the game, and that's why he's in S tier. We move on. E tier cardio, Dricus du Plessis. Now, it does seem a bit harsh on Dricus, but he does gas, and we know that in fights. However, I think he will move up this list. I think he will become a D or a C maybe in the future, because I do know that he's got some kind of he's got like a broken nose or like a broken airway in his nose, so he can't breathe through his nose, and that's why he says he gasses so quickly, because obviously he's only getting half the oxygen that he should normally be getting. So he's just had that surgery done apparently, so I'm sure we'll see if that's true. I'm sure we'll see Dricus do way better in future fights and not gas, but I'm only judging off what I've seen so far. And this guy, I mean, he's pretty muscly, so obviously he's got a lot of oxygen to supply to his body, but he gasses. The first round he's sharp, and then he gets really, really sloppy. He's still got power, but he's just so sloppy after the first round. Still gets finishes, surprisingly, but that just shows you how tin pot and terrible the middleweight division is. But yeah, Dricus du Plessis is in A. We move on. Someone else who's in E tier, we are going for Francis Ngannou. This guy has really bad cardio, and it's probably due to the fact he's absolutely ginormous, so he gasses. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on him. He could also be in D tier, but we're just putting him in A because, geez, in that first Stipe fight, he gassed so fast. He went all out for the finish, couldn't find it, completely gassed. And to be honest, his cardio has improved when he's thrown less volume. Patient Ngannou is a little bit better. He doesn't really seem to gas as much. He looked sharp in the second round in the second Stipe fight, a lot sharper than in the first fight. And he's been 5 rounds with Cyril Gane and he did win. But to be fair, he was going to lose that fight, but Cyril Gane threw the win away. And he looked absolutely knackered in that fifth round. So he's staying in E tier. Wasn't very dangerous after the third round in that fight. Looked really slow and sloppy, and Cyril Gane was basically piecing him up on the feet. But obviously he employed the wrestling, so fair play to him. But didn't really do much with it, so that's why I can't move him up. And yeah, pretty bad gas tank, but not really a problem for him as he seems to finish most of his fights in the first or second round. We move on. Chito Vera, he's going in C tier with Alex Pereira. People say that he's got really good cardio, and honestly, I think his cardio is good. It's good, but I just don't think he's got that much output. I feel like if he had more output, he'd probably gas a bit. He's not a very high volume fighter. You got to look at his fight with Rob Font. He didn't really throw much in that fight, but he did throw, the punches that landed. So that's why he has success. He throws the better punches, the ones that land cleaner, and not very high volume fighter, but when he does land, it works. And that's why he's there, because he never really looks tired. But to be fair, doesn't really throw a lot to tire him out. But he goes 5 rounds quite easily. Looks pretty sharp in the final few rounds. We saw him against Sandhagen. He didn't look overly tired in those final rounds. I know he lost, but But again, not huge volume, I'd say, compared to some of the other bantamweights like Sandhagen. Lots of output. And some others that we're going to get onto. So yeah, that's why he's there. If he had more output and he didn't gas, we'd put him higher, but we just don't have the evidence for that as of right now. Final fighter on the list, we're going for Merab. I'm sorry guys, I don't want to do it, but I have to be honest with myself. He's going in S tier. This guy can push the craziest wrestling pace I've ever seen. He must be on something, but fair play to him. Insane wrestling pressure, probably the best I've ever seen. Showed no issues in the gas tank there. Just continued with Peter Yan. Obviously, that was the most evidence of it. Just absolutely destroyed him. Put a massive pace on him. Just spam takedowns. Really, really weird way of fighting. Not the proper way that it was intended. But he's winning the round, so he doesn't care. He's literally attempted 40 takedowns, and Peter Yan just couldn't stop it, because as soon as he stuffed one, he'd just go for another. And it's that relentless pressure. Not many fighters can do that. It takes so much energy to go for takedowns like that, fail them, and just go for another one. And he had no problem with it. And after the fifth round, he literally looked pretty fresh. Like, he looked like he could do like a 10-round fight. It was crazy. Is Merab an EPO machine? Maybe, but I have no idea. I'm not going to comment on that. But you can't deny he has crazy cardio. So yeah, I think he has better cardio than Sterling as well. So I think he'd probably beat him in a fight as well. Anyway, that is the tier list, guys. I want to thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you're new. I do content like this every single day. Join the Tiz Army, and I'll be doing the live stream on Josh Emmett versus Ilya Tapura. So don't miss that. That'll be the day that starts. And leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below who else you think I should add to this tier list. Obviously, I can't add everyone due to time constraints. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers for watching. See ya.